Hi guys, welcome to this video on our top 3 chipping tips that we use day in and day out here with our members and clients at T-Box London to improve their short game.
And make sure you wait to the end of the video. We're going to show you how to improve your chipping with just a change in your pocket. Before we get into the video, if you like what you see, please press the subscribe button.
And make sure you ring the bell icon so you get a new notification every time we release a new video.
Okay, so tip number 1 is don't hit the golf ball. Now we sound bonkers when we say this, Harry, don't we? But what we're trying to do is we're trying to shift your focus on chip shots from how the club interacts with the ball to how the club interacts with the ground. Now we know that on chip shots, it's far more, distance control is far more important than accuracy. Therefore, there is an emphasis on strike, but golfers, poor chippers do tend to overemphasize strike on the chip shots too much, don't they?
I think the main reason for that is just the speed that the wedge is going at in comparison to, say, a 7-iron, where it's traveling upwards of 80 miles an hour. If you hit the ground first with a 7-iron, because of its speed, it's just going to cut through the ground. And as a result, you can still hit good shots doing it. With a wedge, and when you're chipping, however, that club's going to be going a lot slower. So if you hit that ground before the ball at that slow speed, the ground's going to absorb all of its energy. None of it's going to get transferred into the ball. And as a result, you can hit a couple of feet in front of you and feel quite embarrassed, actually.
Yeah, you can become quite red-faced, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. So why don't you give us an example of that type of shot, Liam? I mean, something that the guys might be familiar with seeing.
Yeah, so as I said before, there's a big emphasis on trying to minimise the contact of the ground before the ball. They want to hit a ball, then turf. We see ball position further back. We see the hands further forward. And we see this club moving down on a really steep angle. So it's really going to minimise the interaction with the ground. It's going to lessen your margin for error. A little bit like this, Harry.
Exactly. I mean, you only hit that shot, less than an inch before the ball, and you can see it barely got over the bunker. A great analogy for this is it's very similar to a plane landing. If you've got that plane coming in really steep, it's going to be very difficult to land it consistently without just crashing it into the floor. What the great chippers do is they get that plane, or in this instance, a wedge, coming in really nice and low to the ground, really shallow, and in contact with the ground for a really long period of time.
Absolutely. We see the best players in the world. We see really good chippers, best players in the world. They can hit the ground almost up to 2 inches before the ball and still hit fantastic chip shots.
Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Those guys, we're saying that those guys are hitting the ground a couple of inches before you, but their ball's ending up a couple of feet from the pin, where your ball's ending up a couple of feet from you. Why don't we give you an example of that? Yeah. I'm going to put down a tee here, 2 tees. They're going to be about the size of a £20 note. And Liam's going to hit this chip shot. He's going to scoop them both up, and we're going to see where the ball goes.
Right, I'm going to make this a £50 note, because the proof's in the pudding. I'm going to try and sweep both these tee pegs up. This is about 3 inches before the ball now.
That was a really good shot. So you can see there, Liam made contact with the first tee, a couple of inches before the ball, and it just shows you that if you can hit the ground a couple of inches before the ball and still hit it a couple of feet from the pin, you're going to give yourself a really big margin for error if you're chipping. Okay, so tip number 2, and this is ball position. What we typically see here is people moving the ball position way too far back in their stance, which affects 3 things. 1, it affects the descent into the golf ball, which we mentioned earlier being way too steep. 2, it makes you use the wrong part of the club. It makes you use the leading edge as you come down into the ground. And 3, it takes way too much loft off the ball to be able to hit functional chip shots of your game.
Absolutely. So what do you mean by leading edge, and Harry? People are quite familiar with the term bounce. What do you mean by bounce and leading edge? Well,
the leading edge is effectively this lowest edge here on the front at the bottom of your club face, which you really want to be using to make contact with the ground during your full swing, where you've got lots of speed. But as you just alluded to, Liam, in chipping, you want to be using the bounce. You want to be using the bottom part of the club.
Absolutely. Do you want to give one a hit, Harry? So let's try and strike one ball position too far back. You've got a 56-degree wedge here. It's a tough shot, but on ball position further back, let's try and strike this one really well.
Okay.
Really nice.
Pretty good strike.
Yeah, lovely strike.
Landed it okay, but you can see it just ran off the ground, ran off the edge of the green there.
Yeah.
Because it was just coming in far too low.
Yeah, I didn't have enough loft on it, did you? Yeah, we can see, Harry, you've only got 34 or 33.8 degrees of dynamic loft. You've got 56 degree wedge there, so you've taken off 20 degrees of lofted impact there. That's due to ball position, isn't it?
Yeah, and despite the fact that I actually struck the ball quite well and I hit a good chip shot, you can see it land on the green and run off the back. So it's no better than just hitting it a couple of feet in front of me.
Absolutely. So with that exact ball position, Harry, with that ball position further back, how would you get the golf ball up in the air?
Well, what I've got to do is I've got to add more loft. And the way I'm going to add more loft is I'm going to then try and flick the club head past my hands, which is what a lot of people try not to do.
Yeah, it's a scary word, isn't it? Flicking with for poor chippers out there. It's one thing they're really trying to avoid.
Yeah, and one of the things they're trying to do to avoid that is trying to keep their body turning through impact. But the problem is, if you've got that ball position that far back and you're trying to continue to turn your body through the ball, it's going to move your hands forward and it's going to take even more loft off the club, which is going to get it coming out even lower and getting it running on even more. And it's completely unfunctional on a lot of golf shots, a lot of chip shots.
Absolutely. Should we get a good one? Let's get that ball position a bit further forwards. Let's try and get you holding this green. We expect the dynamic loft to be much nearer 40 degrees here.
Yeah, so I've got a ball position just inside my left heel, got all my weight on my left foot.
I can see your feet are much closer together, Harry, there as well.
That's right, I will have my feet a lot closer together because that really enables me to get the ball position further forward without having to worry about having the club bottoming out too early. Okay, let's give this one a go.
Oh, nearly hold it. Cracking shot, brilliant. Yeah, lovely. So you can see it's coming out far less violently, isn't it? It's getting a much, much higher launch, landing much, much softer, and it's just due to putting that ball position a little bit further forwards.
Absolutely.
Okay, tip number 3 is to keep loft on the golf club in your backswing. Harry, we know that a backswing for a chip shot is much, much smaller than a long shot and obviously a full shot. And we talked in previous videos about this idea of twisting the lead wrist away, flattening it out to compress your iron shots. It's not quite the same with chipping though, is it?
No, absolutely not. I mean, if you look there in terms of your setup, you can see that your left wrist is what we call a little bit of cupping, a little bit of extension.
About 20 degrees, isn't it?
Roughly about 20 degrees. Now, when that club reaches around about parallel to the ground, halfway back in your chip shots, you really want to maintain a lot of that extension. We don't want to see that left wrist flattening out yet. Because what happens is, if you pop yourself back into setup there, Liam, and you flatten that left wrist out, you'll notice you're going to take a lot of loft off the golf club, which again is going to make it really difficult for you to launch that golf ball on that optimum angle.
Yeah, we can see a good reference point, isn't it, at the top of the backswing position when the club's parallel to the ground. You can see the club is toed down there, isn't it? Hasn't got much loft. Whereas if I maintain this 20 degrees of cup, I've got a lot more loft there. A good reference, Harry, is that club pointing up towards the sky, isn't it?
Absolutely. I tell you what, why don't you hit a shot there where you get the club face really pointing down towards the ground, you lose that extension, and let's just see. But on this one, I want you to get it stopping on the green.
Right, okay. You take me for a player, Harry. Right, so I'm going to try and get this toe down. It's not a bad effort, is it?
It wasn't too bad.
You can see the position I've finished in. It's tough. I feel it's really tough to try and control that move. I've got a lot of stuff going on the way through here. I've shortened the arc, and there's a huge amount going on.
It really looked like you were trying to get that club head to pass your hands, which, although is possible, is not going to be massively consistent. Let's try this shot again this time, but without you losing that flexion on the way back. Let's get you feeling a little bit more extended there.
Perfect. So I'm going to keep my left wrist in 20 degrees of cup up to the top, get my club face pointing towards the sky.
That was beautiful.
You see, just slid underneath.
Excellent.
That feels really controllable.
It launched higher, but with a lot less of that flicking motion through the golf ball, which is going to be so much more manageable. It's going to get you, enabling you to stop the ball on these shots where you've got really little green to work with.
Absolutely. So it's not just about strike, it's about these launch conditions, make them nice and consistent. Yeah. We know that very, very good chippers have up to like maybe a 2 or 3 degree window of their launch. We see bad chippers have almost like a 30 degree window. Some of them going really high, some are going really low on the same good strikes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, we finally move into our favourite drill. This is a drill that you guys can do at home, on the carpet, in the living room. You can do it on the short game area, and it's going to incorporate all the stuff we've talked about in the video so far, Harry, isn't it? So talk us through our favourite drill.
So Really good. All you need is just a penny, a coin. It can be a penny, it can be a 20p piece in this instance. And I want you to put it down on the ground. And the reason why this is such a good drill is because you're never going to be able to get this coin up in the air if you're doing all of those incorrect techniques that we mentioned earlier, because the coin is flat on the floor. Golf ball, you can get away with it every now and then because it's a spherical shape, but with the coin, it's just not possible.
Yeah.
So if I'm here, I've got that club chopping down there, it's never going to work. I've got to feel like my club's getting really nice and low to the ground. It's sliding underneath the coin in order to get it nice and high in the air. Shall I give it a go?
Let's give it a go. Please don't lose it. That's my dinner money tomorrow.
Oh, that was nice.
Beautiful. Excellent. So you really look like you gathered that coin up. The coin was in contact with the club for as long as period of time as you can.
Yeah, and we can guarantee you, if you can do that consistently with the coin, it's going to be a piece of cake when you get the golf ball there.
Brilliant. I'll take that.